To be here with us today, Dom Perrottet, or should I say the member for Epping today also. The member for Epping, who knows quite a bit about the project we're announcing today. Because at the end of the day, how our cities function has an enormous impact on productivity. That was the finding of the Productivity Commission study into productivity that I commissioned as Treasurer, that how our cities function is so important. That's why Paul Fletcher and the team over many years now have been ensuring that our investments are making our cities work more effectively and deal with the congestion in our cities. And there's no greater choke point that is occurring right now, pretty much, that needs to be addressed than what we're talking about right here with the Epping Bridge. And that's why today we're announcing a 50-50 partnership between the state government and the federal government, some $220 million that we're investing together as a partnership to upgrade the Epping Bridge, which will have a significant impact on relieving one of the key bottlenecks in our growing and expanding city, and for many of the reasons that Simon has just articulated. This gets people home sooner and safer ultimately. It reduces congestion, improves productivity, and it improves the quality of life for people living in this part of Sydney as the pressures continue to mount. These issues really can impact negatively if they're not addressed on the quality of life, and that's why we've invested in so many of these projects, which I'm sure Paul Fletcher will have a bit more to say on. I also want to talk about the partnership that we have with the New South Wales State Government. I can tell you when Dom Perrottet and I sit down and talk about money, it's always a tough conversation. You all know that, and we really make sure that we're representing the interests of the state taxpayers and the federal taxpayers. Neither of us are pushovers when it comes to these things. But what we always agree on is the importance of the project or the task that we're actually working to achieve together. And in this case, this is a project which I'm sure the Premier mentioned has been in the works for some time, as the state government has been getting it right in terms of how this can be done and engagement with the community and how it's taken forward. And now, when we've got a clear understanding of the costs, we're able to come together. Now, I've noticed in the last couple of days that Anthony Albanese has been throwing money around at the states, and I can tell you, what you don't want is a Prime Minister who is a pushover for state governments, particularly Labor ones, who are going to come and ask you to pay for all of their problems. And we're already starting to see that, whether it's the Labor government in Queensland or indeed we're seeing it with the Victorian government today. We saw it yesterday in South Australia. Federal taxpayers will pay for Anthony Albanese's weakness when it comes to his ability to control the finances. Premier and I don't make any secret of the fact that we have strong discussions about these things. That's exactly how it should be. I know he's no pushover, and he knows I'm no pushover. And that's how it should be. But what would happen with Anthony Albanese is he'll be happy to pay for the failures of state Labor governments with federal taxpayers' money. Already we're seeing in this campaign, just on his education policy today, he thinks it costs $50 million, it costs $200 million. He's talking about a childcare policy that costs more than $60 billion. Where's all the money coming from? During this campaign, he has not submitted one of his policies for costing by the official costings independent agency in this election. We've submitted all of ours. He has yet to submit one policy for costing. And that, I think, raises serious issues. There's more than $50 billion of additional debt off the balance sheet on just 4 policies alone, including on his housing policy, that he won't be upfront with Australians about. And so how you manage money is incredibly important at this election because it has real consequences for Australians. It puts upward pressure on interest rates, it puts upward pressure on inflation and the costs of living. We've been able to maintain our AAA credit rating all the way through this pandemic, only one of 9 countries to do so, while at the same time seeing employment increase and unemployment fall, see the gender pay gap come closer together. These are the outcomes of strong economic management and strong fiscal management to ensure that federal taxpayers can keep more of what they earn and they don't get hit with higher taxes. The other thing we're announcing today is on skills and apprenticeships. Now, during the course of this pandemic, we have invested heavily to keep Australians in their apprenticeships. This year alone, some $7.8 billion to ensure trade apprentices stayed in training. Over the course of the pandemic, 530,000 trainees and apprentices have been supported. The Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Scheme and the extension of that, which provided 50% wage subsidies and continues to, has helped 385,000 apprentices. The Completing Apprenticeships Commencement Program, 10% subsidies in Year 2, 5% in Year 3. And from the 1st of July of this year, $2.4 billion for 10% wage subsidies in Year 1 and Year 2, and a 5% subsidy in Year 3, and $5,000 in direct support for those apprentices to get on and do those apprenticeships after the 1st of July this year. Our Australian Apprenticeship Support Loans supports apprentices to get very low finance loans of up to $21,542 to help them go ahead with their apprenticeships. We've got $3.7 billion in the budget as our forward plan to create some 800,000 training places across the country. These are serious investments in the future skills of our country, the future jobs, particularly of young people and those going through career transitions over the course of their working life. Skills and labour shortages are the primary economic issue that our country is facing right now, and our government has not held back when it has come to both keeping those apprentices in training and in work during the pandemic, so that we now have 220,000 trade apprentices in training right now. That is the highest level since records began in 1963. No government has had a more serious and significant impact on those numbers since records began in 1963. Now, you'll recall that when Labor was last in office, they cut the apprenticeship wage subsidy and 110,000 went out of the system. So the contrast could not be greater when comparing what we've been doing to boost skills, to keep apprentices in training, to ensure there are training places. Job Trainer alone, which we did with the state government, right around the country, 480,000 training places which kept those young people in training so they can now be in work. And as we come out of this pandemic, and as Australia's economy is performing more strongly than advanced economies of the world, our unemployment falling, our AAA credit rating intact, that means Australia will be able to secure the opportunities that are ahead of us, because we made the wise decisions during the pandemic to back in those apprenticeships with strong trade policies to ensure that Australian companies had the people they need to now go and seize the opportunities that are ahead of them. Now, I know that is quite a few things to raise with you this morning.